Welcome to The Explainer. So today we're going to dig into something pretty fascinating. Why Northern Ireland's journey on LGBTQ rights has been so different from the rest of the UK. It turns out its unique political system created a timeline for change that you just don't see anywhere else. Okay, let's just dive right in with a really clear example. Same-sex marriage. Couples in England, Scotland, and Wales could get married all the way back in 2014. But in Northern Ireland, that right didn't come for another 6 years. And this isn't just a one-off. It's a pattern you see over and over again. So the big question is, why? What's going on here? To really get what's happening today, we've got to rewind the clock. We have to go back to the very first major fork in the road, the long, tough battle just to decriminalize homosexuality. Check out these dates. England and Wales decriminalized homosexual acts way back in 1967. It took until 1981 for Scotland to do the same, and then 1982 for Northern Ireland. That's a full 15 years after the first move. But what's really interesting here isn't just the delay, it's how it finally happened in Northern Ireland. You see, while activists in Northern Ireland were fighting for change, they ran into a brick wall of intense, highly organized opposition. The most famous, or maybe infamous, example was a campaign called Save Ulster from Sodomy, led by Ian Paisley and his party, the DUP. And they were really effective. They managed to block every single attempt to change the law locally. So, and this is the really crucial part, progress didn't come from within. It was actually forced from the outside. An activist named Jeffrey Dudgeon, after being interrogated by police just for being gay, took his case all the way to the European Court of Human Rights. And in 1981, the court sided with him. It ruled that Northern Ireland's laws violated his basic human rights. That decision forced the hand of the UK Parliament. And right there, a powerful precedent was set. For decades, big changes for LGBTQ rights wouldn't come from Belfast. They'd come from the courts or from London. Okay, so let's fast forward a bit. After the Good Friday Agreement, Northern Ireland gets its own power-sharing government at Stormont. But a unique political tool, one designed for a totally different reason, ended up becoming the next huge roadblock for social change. It's this thing called the Petition of Concern. Now, the original idea was actually pretty noble. It was meant to protect minority rights, to make sure that neither the unionist nor the nationalist community could steamroll the other. But what happened was, it started being used as a veto, specifically by the DUP on social issues they didn't agree with, even if those issues had majority support. And this just perfectly illustrates the problem. Get this. In November 2015, we have this historic moment. For the first time ever, a majority of Assembly members voted for legalizing same-sex marriage. It passed, 53 to 51. But it didn't become law. That vote changed absolutely nothing. The DUP immediately used a petition of concern, and because the vote didn't have enough support from the unionist bloc, the majority's decision was just gone, vetoed. And this wasn't a one-off. This exact thing happened 5 separate times on marriage equality. 5 times. And listen, this wasn't some subtle, behind-the-scenes maneuver. It was explicit party policy. Back in 2016, the DUP's leader at the time, Arlene Foster, said it out loud. They were gonna keep using this veto. So what you end up with is this massive gap between the people and the politicians. By 2018, polls showed that a whopping 76% of people in Northern Ireland were in favor of same-sex marriage. A huge majority. And yet, their own government repeatedly used this political loophole to block it. So if the local assembly was completely gridlocked, how on earth did things like marriage equality or equal adoption rights ever actually become law? Well, it's kind of déjà vu, isn't it? Just like with the Dudgeon case back in the 80s, the breakthroughs had to come from outside of Stormont, and they came down 2 very familiar paths. First up, the courts. The ban on same-sex couples adopting children wasn't lifted by politicians in the assembly. Nope. It was ended when the Court of Appeal ruled in 2013 that the ban was discriminatory and a breach of human rights. That ruling forced the law to change. And the second path? Directly through the UK Parliament in London. In 2019, the government in Northern Ireland had actually collapsed and was suspended. So with Stormont not even sitting, MPs in Westminster basically said, enough is enough. They stepped in, held a vote, and legalized same-sex marriage themselves, finally bringing the region in line with the rest of the UK. So if you take one thing away from this whole story, it should be this. Almost every major step forward for LGBTQ rights in Northern Ireland didn't happen because of its own assembly. It happened because of intervention from the outside, either from the courts or direct rule from London. This whole history has left this clear legacy of lag, right? Northern Ireland was the last part of the UK to do pretty much everything. But, the story doesn't end there. The political tone has started to change, it's softening. We've even seen some DUP leaders come out and publicly apologize for what they've called the atrocious homophobic language the party used in the past. And that leaves us with one big, final question to think about. As the politics in Northern Ireland keeps evolving, will the power to make these kinds of big social changes finally come from within? Or will progress always need a push from the outside? It's a question that really gets to the heart of what makes Northern Ireland's journey so unique.